Today's other update video, we're going to be talking about the isolated severe weather threat happening in the central plains as well as even the northern plains. We're going to also be talking about the tropical activity that has been happening in both the Pacific and the Atlantic, and potentially our new tropical storm that could be named that could eventually even turn into a major hurricane. Alright, now for today, we do have a marginal risk for some areas over here in the northern plains and kind of near the Midwest, even over here in Missouri and a little bit of Kansas, so around Kansas City metro area, greater metro area, suburban areas around there will be involved in that. Even over here in a lot of Oklahoma, eastern New Mexico, and the northern panhandle of Texas, we could also be seeing some severe weather out of this. Our biggest risk could be the wind risk, as all of our three areas highlighted in the marginal risk are going to be under our 5% chance for a wind risk, and this will be happening with a 5% chance. Very isolated chance, but it still can happen. With the hail threat, we do have a 5% chance, but only over here in the northern plains and over here kind of around the southern plains. Again, we'll be seeing that 5% chance hail risk. Isolated amounts here and there will probably happen. A 2% tornado risk over here for kind of north central Missouri and a little bit of eastern Kansas. So Kansas City metro areas, suburban areas outside of Kansas City will be in this risk. For day 2, we also have another 3 areas of a marginal risk. We have 2 over here in the Great Lakes region and also in the Midwest. And then we also have one little sneaky down here in southern Arizona that we could be seeing some severe weather. And our biggest risk is going to be the wind risk, which all marginal areas are going to be under that 5% chance. So a very isolated chance, but still can happen here and there. But the hail risk is only going to be Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan that will be under that 5% hail risk. Then there is no tornado risk for day 2. However, there is a chance that they could add one somewhere around here in the Great Lakes. We do have a marginal risk for the Dakotas specifically, so southern North Dakota and northern South Dakota. I know it's kind of flipped-flopped the other way, but there is a marginal risk for this area for tomorrow, and we might have more data on this by we get into midweek. Let's see, throughout 3 to 4 to even 5 p.m., we are going to have some of those storms around the plains start to pop up. They're going to be popping up everywhere because a lot of the plains, at least some of the plains, are going to be under that marginal risk for today. So we'll have scattered thunderstorms over here by Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, even into eastern New Mexico and eastern Colorado. As we kind of move into around 8 to 9 o'clock, these storms over here in Oklahoma, eastern New Mexico, in the northern panhandle of Texas will begin to really intensify. And then as we kind of move out into the overnight, those storms are going to be kind of moving through, the northern panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. And we can see over here towards Missouri that we are going to have some of those thunderstorms being able to produce some very isolated, maybe 1 or 2 possible tornadoes here and there could happen around the Kansas City areas. Now for today, we do have 3 different areas of slight risk for excessive rainfall over here in Oklahoma and Texas. We do actually have some flood watches in effect over there, as well as even over here along the coast of the Carolinas in Georgia and down here in Florida's western panhandle, I should say. Then for day 2, we don't have a slight risk for any areas. However, I do think there might be a chance of a slight risk being pulled up along here where severe weather is going to be. Even over here, we could still have some along the coast and actually both coasts, the Gulf Coast and as well as the coast of the Carolinas. We could be seeing, a potential upgrade to a slight risk. It might not happen, but there is a chance, I think, that it could happen. And then day 3, we actually do have a really big 5% risk that extends from the southeast to the northeast. So a lot of us in the East Coast are going to be under this 5%. So it's still the coast of the Carolinas, even over here in the Dakotas and Minnesota, and down here in Arizona and New Mexico. Say for August 11th, a lot of us over here in the United States are going to remain dry, except over here in the northern panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. Some areas could receive swaths of 1 to 2 inches. It is going to be quite a big area, but it also could be an isolated area too if these storms do break off into their own separate cells. Now, over here towards the Kansas City area, a couple, maybe some areas could receive up to an inch or two possible, but it is going to be very isolated. Our biggest excessive rainfall risk, flooding risk, is going to be down here in Georgia and the Carolinas, where swaths of up to 3 inches of rain are possible. Some areas localized could see up to 4 to even 5 inches possible. And we have been dealing with flooding over here in the Carolinas over the past 1 to 2 days now. So we do need to be weather aware of this excessive rainfall outbreak over here. And that's why I think that tomorrow they'll upgrade this to a slight chance potentially. Next 3 days of excessive rainfall. Some areas in the along Oklahoma and the Texas border could see up to 6 inches in some places for sure. Around the southeast, we're also going to be drenched with rain, where we're going to have large swaths of 1 to 2 inches, 3 to 4 inches. Very localized, but still can happen across some areas. And we can still see that the west coast is going to remain dry, and that's where we've been seeing a lot of our wildfires at. So that rain is going to be really helpful for those wildfires to stop spreading. So those flames over there will continue to probably grow. And speaking of the lack of precipitation over in the West, a lot of us in the West are actually in the drought range. So some areas over here in Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah up to extreme drought. Even over here in Idaho's northern bit, some exceptional drought has been happening. Over here in the northern plains, up to moderate to even severe drought is possible. And right as we get to the plains, we also have been seeing some drought. And this is where a lot of our farming comes in. So farmers, this could be have been experiencing some drought over here in Kansas, Nebraska, and South Dakota. Over here in the East Coast, too, some areas are spreading with some abnormally dry areas. Even over here in Michigan, some areas could be up to a severe drought. So some metro areas over here in the East Coast could be experiencing some up to moderate drought stuff happening. All right, now it's time that we talk about the tropics. So, the tropics in recent days have been growing in terms of the amount of tropical storms that are over here. So, we actually have a lot of areas. We have 2 areas that are still in potential development over here in the Atlantic. These 2 storms are not going to be problems at all for anybody. We do have a Category 1 hurricane that is expected to move across the Pacific. However, it's probably not going to do really anything in its path. But the Atlantic is what we're going to be talking about mainly. Over here, we do have a tropical storm. Tropical storm Erin is forming across the Atlantic. And as this hurricane moves through for the next week, this thing could potentially become our first major hurricane of the season. Because as we can see throughout the next 7 days, it could potentially become a Cat 3 hurricane. So these islands over here in the Caribbean could be experiencing some major wave problems. So high surf problems, coastal flooding could even be a thing. And if we do move to the next, 2 weeks, it's still an uncertainty if this thing is going to hit Florida, if this thing is going to turn south onto Cuba. Even if this thing could also potentially, it could make a hard turn as well and miss the United States. Or, it could hit the mid-Atlantic region. It could also even hit the Northeast region. This is still kind of uncertainty, but we do need to kind of start to get weather aware for anybody along the East Coast as a matter about a potential major hurricane moving through. Now, there is a chance that it could weaken as it gets to the East Coast, but if we're seeing a Category 3 hurricane happening here, we know that there's going to be some big trouble happening in the East Coast. So I do want everybody to be weather aware about this. This isn't a problem that we need to deal with just yet, but just as a little, information to know. Next 6 to 10 days, the majority of us in the United States are going to be above average. Maybe over here along the West Coast might experience a little bit below than average temperatures, but the majority of us are going to be above average. And then for the next 8 to 10 days, all of us in the country is going to be above average for temperatures. A little bit out the Pacific Northwest and maybe like places like Maine could be near normal or just even a tiny bit below average, but again, most of us in the country will be above average. Then for precipitation throughout the next 6 to 10 days, a lot of us in the country are either going to be a tiny bit above average for precipitation or around near normal average for precipitation. We do have below than average precipitation over here in the West Coast, mainly like Nevada, Utah, a little bit of Idaho and California is below average. And again, that's where we've been seeing a lot of our wildfires happen across the West Coast. So that is probably extremely why we've been seeing those wildfires, because the ground has been so dry and we've been seeing below average amounts of precipitation happen. So we really want to hope that some rain does start to move in. And then throughout the next 8 to 14 days, we do have a very large uncertainty as to where precipitation is, because there's not a really high chance of it happening, so that's how you know that's going to be like this way. But some stuff may be suggesting that the West Coast might be a little more drier than average, even over here in the Great Lakes, Midwest, towards the Northeast. However, above average stuff we could be seeing along the Southeast here, and as well as the Northern Plains. Alright, that's going to be it for today's weather update video. So if you guys like to see another one, make sure you guys like and subscribe to see the next one. Potentially share this with friends and family. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.